Today's daf is Masechta Zevachim Daf Ayin Beis Amid Aleph. So I'm going to show a picture of just what the Mishnah was discussing. We learned this Mishnah, Steve, yesterday on Daf Ayin Amid Beis Kol Hazvachim, the new parak. So the new parak began with a case. This is the case. You have see this little sheep that got mixed up in all other sheep. So this sheep, all the other sheeps are oilers. Let's write that oilers. They're, we'll put an O for an oiler. All these sheeps were oilers, carbons that they were supposed to be brought. This sheep is a type of sheep that is asr bahanoah. What that means is that it did something so terrible that you have to kill it and nobody's allowed to benefit from the meat. How's that possible? It killed a human being. And they were them, and that's called a shor haniskal. Doesn't mean an ox, it can mean any animal that killed. And they poskened on the animal that it should be stoned because it killed a human being. So the Mishnah says, what happens if this shor haniskal, just one of them, gets mixed up with 10,000 carbon oilers, zero, oila. What's the din? All the carbon oilers have to die. You gotta kill all of them. Why? Because to bring them all on the mizbeach, that's usher, because this animal is usher. It's mixed into the other animals, and you don't know who's who. So you can't bring a shar haniskal onto the mizbeach, and you can't redeem it. You can't figure out a way to redeem it because a shara niskal cannot be redeemed no matter what. There's nothing. It's just that it has to be asr bahana. And if it gets mixed up with other carbon oilers, the din is you kill all these oilers. You let them all die. You don't bring them on the mizbeach. Then the Mishnah brings the second case. I think people didn't chop the second case, but let's give the example. There's other types of animals that are not osir bahanoah, but some animals cannot be brought on the mizbeach. You know that some animals cannot be brought on the mizbeach. For example, an animal that was born via a C-section, it's a kosher animal. You could take it to gourmet glatt and have it shechted and eaten, but it cannot be brought as a carbon. So now the Mishnah adds, what happens if you have one C-section animal got mixed up with two oilers? So what do? You can't, you can't say, oh, I'm going to bring all three of them onto the mizbeach because a C-section animal cannot be brought on the mizbeach, and therefore, and you don't know which is the oiler, which is the C-section animal. So what do? So the Mishnah says, I have an eitzah. You let them graze until each of these animals get a blemish. When an animal that's kachim gets a blemish, you could redeem it onto money. Now, suppose suppose the animal. Suppose one animal was worth 50, the other animal was worth 100, and the third animal was worth 200. So you receive $350, right? If you got $350, so then two of the animals again had to be brought as oilers. So then you take other money from your home, 300, I should say 300. This is supposed to be 300 from your home. We're going to assume, you always assume that the higher, the valuable animals were for the carbon oilers. So since you had two animals that were oilers mixed in with the C-section, the money that you received, 100 and 200, we're going to assume that was oiler money. So you transfer that money onto $300 that you have from your house and say that I'm transferring the kedusha of the oilers onto this money. And you brought and from this money you bring two carbonas. Okay, so that was the way out of it if it got mixed up with a C-section. So now the Gemara here we are. Says the Gemara, the Hedya, two lines from the bottom of Ayin Aleph Amid Beis. Says the Gemara, the Hedya Nami Tanale. Why do we have to have our Mishnah? that says that if Isurei Hanoah gets mixed up, if Isurei Hanoah gets mixed up with other things, why do I have to have our Mishnah tell us that? It's a Mishnah in Masechta Avodah Zarah. Ve'elu asurin ve'oisrim b'chol shem. The following things that if they fall in, the whole thing becomes aser, even a drop. Yayin nesach b'avodah zarah. Like this example. Yayin nesach. A guy has avodah zarah wine that falls into a barrel of kosher wine, regular wine. So the whole kosher wine is aser. So we see that Isurei now that gets mixed into something, the whole thing becomes Aser B'Hanoah. So that's easy. So why do I need our Mishnah to tell us that this Shar Niskel that gets mixed up with other sheep, all the Eilis become Aser B'Hanoah? That's already a Mishnah in Masechta Avodah Zarah. That's the Gemara's question. Answers the Gemara. We go to Beis Amar Aleph. Tzrichi, I need two Mishnayos. The email Hasam. If I just had the Mishnah Masechta Avodah Zarah, Havamina Lehedyet, I would think, yes, I have no problem in the case of the wine to aser all the wine, because who owns this wine? An individual. So we tell him that, listen, all your wine becomes aser. But in this case, in the case of the sheep with the mixed up with other zvachim, what are you telling me? You're telling me that all the sheeps now can't be bought as carbons, so that who's losing out? The Beis Hamikdash. So I would think, Avala Gavoya, when it comes to losing out for the Beis Hamikdash, Ema loisaf nafsidina lekula. I wouldn't cause a loss for the whole Hegdish. So therefore, I need our Mishnah over here. Now, if I just had our Mishnah over here, Havamina, I would have thought the reason why all these karbanis, all the animals are not to be brought onto the Mizbeach, Hanamili, the kachin, the dim is, because it's disgusting to bring an animal that's Asr Bahano onto the Mizbeach. So therefore, I have no problem asering all the animals because of this animal, because I don't want to bring all the animals on the Mizbeach, because this animal is part of that group, and just the fact that this animal may come to be brought on the Mizbeach is an abomination to the Mizbeach. Avachulim, the loimois, there's nothing mius about it, it's nothing disgusting. Ema esuri hanoah libatli beruba. Let us say that the little drop of wine that fell into the barrel of wine should become nullified with the majority. Since the majority is mostly kosher wine, we'll just say that it becomes batal. So that's why tzricha. That's why I need the Mishnah in Masechta Avodah Zarah. So we learned basically four cases. We learned in our Mishnah the first case, which was that sometimes if a Isurei Noh gets mixed in, you have to get rid of all the animals, and even though you're causing a loss for Hegdish. Then we learned the second case with the C-section. Our Mishnah is just telling us that if it's an animal that's not Isur Bahano, but just cannot be brought onto the Mizbeach, then we have a way to fix it. You have a way to not have to lose all the animals. Then we learned yesterday about a case in Tamura where it even tells you that if in this case, even there that the Mishnah Tamura tells you that this case of the C-section can be in a case where there's 1,000 carbon oilers, it still would not become bottle because you have a way to fix it. Basically, it would never become bottle. And finally, in our case of Avodah Zarah, that even chulin going into something that's nothing to do with kachim, with the wine, we don't say it becomes bottle, and all the wine becomes aser. Okay, now we go into the question. The big question is, why isn't it? Why is if this one animal that's a shar niskel gets mixed up with the other carbonylus, we don't say it's batal baraif. All over Torah, we say everything becomes nullified with the majority. Says the Gemara, v'nimatli beruba. Let us say that it becomes batal baraif. That the animal should become batal baraif. Chitem, are you going to say chashivi v'loy batli? An animal is very important, and therefore it doesn't become batal baraif. Now, what makes an animal important? Because most people, let's call it 90% of people, when they sell animals, they will sell the animals counting. So if I'm selling you animals and I'm selling you 89 animals, I'm going to count out 89 animals. There is a minority of people who will sell animals that they won't count it out. They'll send you a flock of animals and make an estimation. There's probably about 100 or 95 in the 90 animals I'm selling you. They don't care if they add a little bit more onto the number that they owe you. But most people will count the animals. So when you count something, it's always important so it never becomes batal. So, so therefore, hanicha, your answer only works well with the animals. According to the opinion that something doesn't become batal only if it's most people count it out. Kol shadar limones. If it's something that some people have there when they sell it or they transact with it, they count it out. So that makes it something that won't be nullified. That makes sense. Shaninu. Then it makes sense. According to the Mandi Amma, that the only way something doesn't become nullified is es shadarka limon shaninu. That you has to be something that you absolutely only count out. 100% of the people will not estimate. They will actually count it out. For example, diamonds. No one is selling, I'm selling you 3 diamonds. They're going to say, you can take an extra one. No, it's something that you actually count out. So therefore, then, only then, it doesn't become batal. But animals, there's 10% of people who will not count the animals. When they sell and transact with animals, they'll just sell you a flock and they don't care how much exact animals are in there. So according to that opinion, why does not the animal become batal b'roif? Ma'ikal. What are you going to answer me? And here is the Mishnah, the source of the darkei limonis, eshadarkei limonis, that it has either it's most people count it out, or you needed something that absolute, everybody counts it out. The Tanam we learned in the Mishnah. This Mishnah is an Arla. A person has, we can see in the picture, a person has these bundles of klaya karim. In other words, this is fenugreek. It's a very choshev plant, and it's a bundle. It's something. It's a very choshev plant. Okay, Rashi explains the reason why it's choshev because it's used as a spice, and the taste of the bark of the plant is very similar to the fruit. It's like a bean. Anyway, what happens if one of them was made up of klaya karim? One of them was also one of these bundles of fenugreek was planted next to a vineyard, so that asers this fenugreek bundle. And so if that happened to the fenugreek bundle, we go to Amid Beis, Yidolku, you got to burn it. You can't benefit from it because it's klaya karim. Anything that got mixed up with a vine, you have to burn it. Nisarvu bachem, if it got mixed up with hundreds of others, 1,000 other fenugreek bundles that were not klaya karim, kulan yidalku, you have to burn them all. Divrei Rameir. Rameir is of the opinion they don't become batal. Chachamim says no, they do become batal. Yalu be'echad u'masayim. They become batal with 1 out of 200. If that one bundle of klaya karim fenugreek falls into 200 of other bundles that are non-klaya karim fenugreek, then it becomes batal. That's the din by klaya karim. Certain things normally we are familiar with 1 out of 60, but in truma it becomes 1 out of 100. In klaya karim, the bittul is 1 out of 200. Chama holds it could be nullified. Why does Rameir hold it does not become nullified? Rameir says, Kol shadakali monis mekadesh. Rameir says that since fenugreek is so expensive, it's an imported spice, people count it out. So if it's something that's counted out, when you transact with it, it doesn't become nullified. But Chachamim says it doesn't matter. It will become nullified, even if you count it out. Rachamim says, only 6 special items are so special that they never become nullified. If one is usher and falls into a bunch that are heter, they'll never become nullified. Rabbi Kiva Omer Shiva. There's actually 7 unique items. The Elohein, the following are the unique items. Egoize perach, walnuts that have come from this place called Perach, Rimoine Baden, and pomegranates coming from this place called Baden. These are like unique, exotic fruits. V'chavias tumes, and closed barrels of wine. So if one closed barrel of wine gets mixed, which is, let's say, yayin nesach, gets mixed up with with 100 to 1,000 other barrels of wine that are kosher wine, all the wines become aser. The chilfei trodin, and the greens of beets, the kilchei krov, cabbage stalk, udlas yavonis, and Greek gourds. So these are very special items in the fruit store that are really sold by number, by unit, not by weight. Okay? Rabbi Kiva added on, and he said, Af kikara shel balabayas, a bread that's baked at home, which is a unique way of shaping the bread. So that's also very special. And if it falls into other breads, it never becomes bottle. Haroy arla, wherever there could be a problem with arla, then we're talking about it fell into other arlas. For example, like pomegranates, egoism, and wine could be made out of arla. So then, again, it never becomes bottle. Haroy l'kaya kerem, if it could have a problem of klaya kerem that was planted next to a vine, like beets, like cabbage stalk, like gourds, klaya kerem, they're klaya kerem. But that's the Chachamim and Rab Kiva. Let's ignore them for a moment. We're dealing with Rameir. Rameir said that the fenugreek, this thing, is counted, and because of that, it never becomes bottle. Chachamim says it becomes bottle in 1 and 200. Chachamim says if one of them become aser, and it falls into 1,000 fenugreek bundles, they all aser. What makes the fenugreek special? The itma Allah. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Es shadar kalimona sheninu." Rabbi Meir was of the opinion that fenugreek is absolutely sold by unit. It's not sold. Nobody sells it by weight or by estimation. Rab Shimon ben Lakish kol shadar kalimona sheninu. Rab Shimon ben Lakish says that no, fenugreek is not necessarily absolutely only sold by unit. It could be some people, like a small percentage of people, sell it by estimation. But most people sell it by unit. So getting back to our Gemara animals are really, most people sell it by unit. They sell animals by unit. And only a minority sell it by estimation, by flock. So according to Rish Lakish, everything makes perfect sense. Since this animal over here, this little sheep, most people will sell the animal when they're selling animals, count out the units, so it never becomes bottle. And animals never become bottle in other animals. They never become nullified. So according to Rish Lakish, this makes perfect sense. But according to Rabbi Yochanan says, since there are some people that will sell flocks of sheep, and they will not count the exact amount of sheep, so sheep is not something that would not become bottle. It's not absolutely. It's not an absolute that's counted by unit. It's counted. It's most people counted by unit, but there's some people that don't, and therefore it doesn't make it so special a sheep to become bottle. So the question is, why does our Mishnah say that if the Shor Haniskel got mixed up with other sheep, it does not become bottle, and you have to let all the other karbanos, all the other sheep die? So that's Gemara's question. What are you going to say? And here we'll end. Omar Papa says there's a new opinion. Hi Tana, the Tana of our Mishnah, Tana the litra kitziasu. It's the Tana talking about dried figs. Now dried figs, most people are selling it by weight, right? Most people are selling it by weight, or by estimation. But there is a group of people, like a percentage of people will sell it by unit too. So he said, Omar, this Tana said, Kol davash yesh by minyan. Even if just some people will sell it by unit, so even if it's an item that some people will sell it by unit, for example, this liter of dried figs, so when that item falls into an Issa D'Rabbanan, it will never become batal. And certainly if it falls into an Issa D'Oraisa, it will never become batal. So because he holds, as long as some people count it, even though most people don't, but some people sell it by unit, it becomes so special, it never becomes batal. So here's your answer. Why does not this sheep become nullified? Because this our Tana goes like a certain opinion that holds that sheep, since some people sell it by unit, you don't even need majority selling it by unit. Even if just some people sell it by unit, it makes the sheep very chashiv. So when it got mixed up, when this Shar Niskal got mixed up in other oilers, it never became bottle. And that's how you understand the beginning of our Mishnah. Okay, we'll continue with Ayin Gimel tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem.
Shkaya, thank you.
Okay.